Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast. And today's show, I have Michael Evenson. He's born in 1945. He considers himself part of the boomer generation, which means that he's not cool anymore. No, that's not what it says. It means that anything he was interested in became a fashion for much of the country. I think pickleball is that right now, Michael. All the seniors are playing pickleball now, and it's because it's all boomers.
Not
Um,
me.
he got a liberal arts degree from University of California at Berkeley, and he headed for the hills to carve out a life with other community building individuals, raising children, preserving environmental health, farming and ranching. His ranch, Lost Coast Ranch, was from the late 60s to the present. He is the owner and founder of oldgrowthtimbers.com, and he specializes in dismantling old buildings to salvage the precious old redwood. He routinely trucks lumber and livestock on the back roads and highways of California, and a lifetime of salmon restoration in the Mattole River. He is the longtime president of the Mattole Salmon Group. We're going to get to him in 1 second, but first, I got to go over to Mark Baker and get a soft lights update. What's happening with soft lights? I'm so excited. I can't wait to find out.
Okay, Michael, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so last week I was contacted by the office of a state assembly member in New York, and they asked for help to pass a law to regulate LED headlights.
Oh,
And I said, you bet. So over the last few days, I've been researching and writing a document and submitting it to them to help them understand why LED headlights are so dangerous, why they're so glary, and why the federal government, NHTSA, and the Food and Drug Administration aren't doing their jobs. So can a state like New York take the place of the federal government and do something about it? And the answer is legally, yes. So we're working on the numbers. What's the right metrics? How can the state regulate this? Get everybody on board. It's just in its big infancy, really, but we're very excited about this project.
wow. And if you think you're making a difference out there, screaming into Twitter or Instagram about whatever you're mad at today, you need to go to the Mark Baker Soft Light School of how to make change in your society. It takes time, it takes hard work. It takes, all sorts of stuff. And that's why we support Mike Baker. We love Mark Baker, softlights.org. Check him out. Michael Evenson, welcome to the Restoring Darkness podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I'm going to give it right to you, Mark, right off the top from the beginning.
All right. All right. Well, Michael, you live in the Lost Coast area. Where is that?
That's Northern California. It's north of Mendocino. It's just south of the Oregon border. Nearest town, about 60, 70 miles away, Eureka, California. People maybe have heard of that. It's
Yeah,
rural.
I've been.
It is lost. It's too rugged and mountainous for a major highway to go through it. And the one highway that is fairly close is always washed out every year. It has a section that needs repair.
Well, so living out there in the boonies where there is nobody out there, you're on this show though to talk about light pollution or LED headlights. How are those lights impacting you way out there on the Lost Coast?
Well, these lights are really important for us to be able to see, as we're driving rural roads. So there's a real place for LED. But just like when you drive along and you see another car, you have to dim your lights. These LEDs don't dim. They are just full on all the time. You can flash at somebody who's coming at you with these LED lights, and they've got their dim lights on, and it's still too much. And on top of that, uh, depending on whether you're in a vehicle that's low to the ground, like a car, compact, uh, or a big truck or a pickup truck. I mean, I drive an F-350, because I'm hauling stuff around. Uh, that headlight is starting higher
Hmm.
than a normal car. So when it comes at you, even if it's at its dims, they are not making these LED lights like they do in Europe, which are shielded and only hit the road. I once had an old BMW, and it had these amazing lights. They were really bright, but they never ever blasted above the road. So this is doable. And when you work with your um, uh, state assemblyman or legislator in New York, you should be looking at the European models and the European specifications to develop some kind of program, because there's no reason why they can't do this. It's just sloppiness that allows cars to come at you. So what happens when a car or a truck with these headlights, these LED headlights, come at you? You cannot see a thing
Mm-hmm.
because we're in darkness, and then all of a sudden we're in absolute terror brightness. I stop my vehicle on the road. I will not move. I don't care if I'm, and these are narrow roads. I don't care where I am on the road. I am not moving 1 inch forward, because I might go off the road into a ditch,
Hmm.
or I might go head on into someone. That, you know, the the threat to public safety is enormous. And if you think about pedestrians, they have no they have no defense against what's going on the road next to them, or a bicyclist. I mean, this is public. This is a public safety issue, not just personal preference issue.
Hmm.
Yeah, so the situation in New York, that's one of the sort of the keys is its safety. So New York can do some kind of a law to protect safety. Vehicle manufacturers have typically focused only on the safety of the occupant of the car,
Mm-hmm.
and not on the safety of everybody else around. Just this week, there was some news about NHTSA actually doing a proposal to better protect um, occupants outside of the vehicle. I don't remember exactly what it was, but at least that was something. But that's one of the biggest things. There's an issue with insurance companies. They don't sort of seem to really care about the pedestrian or the bicyclist or the oncoming car. They care about who they're insuring, which is you. So if you're safe, that's okay. But if you're being blinded by others, I don't know, they're not really so interested. And it's difficult if you're blinded. How are you going to track that person down? How are you going to find out what kind of a car it was so you could complain to somebody? You can't see, right?
Right. Unless you hit them.
Yeah, that's
Head
the
on.
only terror.
Well,
That's
just
true.
That's another avenue for you to pursue. So go to the insurance companies and say, look, what if we have a head-on car crash that's caused by these blindness? Who are you going to protect here?
well, the other thing, I want to throw
Let's
into
get the
the
insurance companies working for us.
I want to throw something in the mix here. So, Mark, when you're talking about um, the effects of these blinding headlights on, you're talking about all manner of different problems. You're talking about people. Michael here is pulling off the road because he's scared of getting into a car crash. Johanna Wilson is afraid to drive. She can't drive. She won't drive at night, and she won't drive in the rain because of the lights. You got people that can suffer seizures and other. I'm not a doctor, so other problems with the way the light is penetrating their eyes and causing their brain to malfunction. I don't know what you call that in the medical terms, but that's what it is. There's like a spectrum of different health problems and problems created by these destructive headlights. And do you have a full list, Mark, of all the different things that this causes that you can share with that New York Assemblyman?
We do, but Michael, you just did a great job of describing some of the most big categories. So there's this safety issue, the glare. We call it glare is unwanted light. So light that's not helping you see. That's this glare. So that's occurring. You got a big ball of white flash in your eyes. That's no good. So the next thing that you mentioned was neurological impacts. So
That's the word.
what are these? Yeah, what are these? We're having non-epileptic seizures, epileptic seizures, migraines. Um, People are thinking about suicide because of the impact of the lights. This is how it makes them feel, the neurological reactions, and then a psychological trauma is occurring. You have photobiological hazard. So this blue light penetrates and damages our eye cells, and it may kill the eye cells, and it's permanent death. It's not like skin cells and they come back. They're dead. So we're super afraid that over the next 30 years, everybody will have macular degeneration. All the young people will have it if they're being exposed to these LED headlights for such a long time. Was there another one that you mentioned?
Well, I want to drive it over to Michael. What do you think about? You're
I
speaking
commented
about
on
an
that.
expert. Yeah, comment.
Okay. In Humboldt County, where I live, there are so many pedestrian deaths and injuries lately, and it's spiked. And they don't understand. Well, is it because people are looking at their cell phones, walking across streets, or what is it? But it's often the driver says, "I didn't see them." And so you're talking about this effect in 30 years. I think we're seeing it now.
Yes,
You
Michael.
should
So
take a look at the statistics of pedestrian, hit by cars, and see whether or not that's increased elsewhere. I bet it has.
you're right, it has. So the Governor's Highway Safety Administration has done studies. There's a graph. It's posted on our website, softlights.org. It shows pedestrian fatalities greatly increasing at night. Not just generally, but at night.
Mm-hmm.
What do they attribute it to? Well, they don't seem to know. Right? The government, people, the auto industry, they don't seem to know. But on this show, and Michael Evenson, what you've experienced, is that this glare should be investigated. It's highly likely that not only the headlights, but street lights, floodlights from a gas station, flashing lights on a police car, they're all in your way. When you go into town, do you go into town at nighttime, and do you encounter other kinds of lights in town?
Yeah. I don't go in at night, but I end up leaving at night after doing all the errands and shopping lists and supplies and things. Yeah. And I'm not comfortable. I'm not sure I can see everybody.
It's when you're talking about these headlights, and what Mark was talking about in 30 years was really the degeneration of the eyes. I think they're going to have. I think the young people are not going to be able to hear because of the headphones, and they're not going to be able to see because of the light pollution. But you know what?
Well, yeah.
What we're experiencing is that, and I think this is the issue. Everybody in the lighting industry that I know believes that these lighting systems are better, right? So if you
Right.
go to someone in the lighting industry and you say, hey, you changed these lights to LEDs, do you think that has anything to do with the accidents that have gone up in this area? No, the lighting can't have anything to do with it. But all the accidents are at night. No, but no, these lights are better than the old lights. Look how bright it is, right?
And how much less electricity they use.
Yeah. Let me show you my rendering. I put a rendering on paper. See, it's better. It looks better on paper than the other one looks on paper. But what Mark's arguing, Michael, is that the metrics for HID lighting, which is high pressure sodium, which is the orange one, which is a very common street light, guarantee you probably still have some up there in Northern California. The way the attributes and the specifications of those lamps were taken and just put onto LED inappropriately. So they used metrics from one technology and they put them onto the new technology, assuming everything was going to be the same. And it's nothing.
Who's the they? Who's
The lighting
they
industry.
here?
The lighting industry.
So it's about profit.
I think, you know what? I don't know if there's greed or skullduggery afoot. I wouldn't go that far. I just think that the lighting industry needs a clear off-ramp to save face. And that they haven't discovered that off-ramp yet. But as soon as that off-ramp shows up, they're going to go right on it. Because everybody at the, I call them the lighting industry deep state, Michael. everyone in the lighting industry deep state, which is a bunch of lettered organizations, just like the FBI, the CIA, and all this stuff. We have a deep state in lighting, and it's all 3-letter agencies and this and that out there, right? That run the lighting industry. As soon as they get this off ramp, they're going to go right off because this is a catastrophe, Michael, and they all know it. They just don't want to admit it.
Well, who's offered them the off ramp? Let's put them to it. Let's let them know, and then find out whether or not they really care about the people that are exposed to their lights, or that they've invested so much in manufacturing that they want to pump out until the plant's no longer useful.
Yeah, I don't think there's any motivations like that because most of these light fixtures are made in China. So there's no factory in America. There's a couple factories. One just went out of business in Texas, but there are a couple people that, may be able to go to a state legislator and say, I employ 2,000 people here or whatever. There isn't that much of that. This is just total stupidity on behalf of the lighting industry. That's what it is. It's total stupidity and a failure to admit when you're wrong. And they need an off-ramp. It's like when China and the U.S. are in a geopolitical battle, everybody has to figure out a solution where nobody loses face. That's unfortunately the way the world works, right? So,
Right.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm getting pretty close to maybe getting sued because I'm really attacking these folks, Michael. But in your situation, it's obvious. You don't need to be an electrical engineer or a lighting researcher to see that these headlights are completely out of control, Michael. Anybody can see that.
Oh yeah.
Now, how do you get the audio industry and the roadway engineers and the lighting people together to say, hey, this was a really bad idea? I don't know. Well, do you have any ideas, Michael Evenson, about how we could do that? Because I've been working on it for about 3 years and then haven't made very much progress other than Mark's work. I really like his work.
Well, I like what Mark has done in terms of getting legislation to look at it. But what happens is when the industry feels regulation coming, they kind of dig their heels in a bit, and so that regulation has never really worked because industries tend to work around them.
No, I'm gonna one up you there.
They get lawyers involved.
It's the
to
industry
comply.
that writes the regulations. So like that's how it works. So
I like what you're saying about offering an off ramp. So
Yeah.
where's that effort going to come from? I don't think it's going to come from the legislature. I think it has to come from consumers. And so Mark has done a bunch of work in trying to get the word out to people. Hey, you don't have to take this anymore. You can sign a petition, or you can call somebody. But maybe you're onto something about getting Mark to focus on the vendors and the importers of lights to let them know that hey, my aunt was killed by a driver who was blinded. Start working on those people that you want to offer an off ramp to. Go direct.
Well, that's my job, and I don't know how to do it. So Mark's doing a great job from the soft lights. He's the most effective person in the state in this area here. But what I would say is that, have you ever been involved, either of you guys, Mark or Michael? Have you been involved in car accident litigation ever in your life?
Minor.
I was involved in a car accident litigation at Sunset where an 11-year-old boy was killed and died. And the way that system works, okay, is, and this is in Canada, but it's the same system in Canada and the United States, is who's at fault? So the parents of the kid who let their kid ride their bike over top of a highway, right over an 11-year-old boy crossing a major highway overpass where people are entering a highway at high speed. The parents are on there. The person that was involved is sued. The town, the province, the highway, and the regional police department. Everybody's been sued. Okay? I think in these cases, the logical thing is for someone to add the lighting industry to that list. And what they're going to do is, the first thing the lawyers are going to do, Mark, is they're going to pull out the old codes, which were built for high pressure sodium and metal halide, and they're going to say, look it, this applies to this code. But I think the only way out of it is for a lawyer to say, well, hey, the old metrics for HID and incandescent headlights don't work for LEDs, and so we're moving on this basis here. It's in a lawsuit, which would cost a lighting company millions of dollars. And whoever manufactured that headlight, the car company it's in, everybody gets sued. That's probably the best way to create jeopardy for people who make these kinds of lights and have their head in the sand. That would be my suggestion on top of what Mark's already doing to push the accelerator down. If there's an accident and you add the vehicle headlight manufacturer, which is probably some company that makes headlights for cars, and their distributors and all the people in the value chain that are involved, and the car manufacturer, and bring them into court and have them answer some questions on the stand if they don't want to pay, or they pay, or you go on the stand. What do you prefer? Right? That's how that works. Yeah. That's how that works, right? So, the headlight issue is definitely the most pernicious, Michael. I'll tell you that. Of all the things Mark and I talk about, the headlights are seem to be the most direct. People know this. Do you have a group up there in Northern California that you're working on, or is it just you?
I don't know how I found out about Mark and how that all came about. To tell you the truth, I know that many people talk about it, but nobody ever thought about organizing about it. I mean, we're trying to protect our rivers, trying to protect our salmon. There's a lot of, as beef producers, we're trying to protect our livelihoods from animal rights groups because, everything is broad brush. And even though, I can show that our animals are really well taken care of and all, I'm still caught in that whole web. That's part of our society today.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned the litigious part. It makes everyone a little bit edgy, I would say gun shy, but nobody's going after they're trying to go after the arms manufacturers, the Smith & Wesson and the Colt and all, for all these school shootings that we have down here in the lower 48. It's not easy to change society. It takes the kind of persistence that Mark's showing to that where you just keep the pressure on, gathering more and more agreement from people.
Well, we are making progress. It's super slow. I mean, my gosh, I've been doing this for years now. So, but we are getting somewhere. I read something today that is interesting that said it was an article on a website for a law firm. And so they sort of described the problems with LED headlights, and they said in there, and I've seen this many times, it said that these LED headlights are growing in popularity.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's stop and think about what that sentence means, because a lot of the reporters say that, growing in popularity. Popular for who is what my question is, because I don't know anybody that likes LED headlights. Maybe when you're on a country road all by yourself and you think there's nothing out there and you can see farther. But in most cases, for millions, hundreds of millions of people, they're not popular. So they're popular from the automobile manufacturers, the designers, the engineers. They're excited for this new technology. So it comes in a little package. You can see the headlights now. They're all kinds of different designs. These ones on the Rivians, have you seen these like oval shaped headlights? Like that's super disturbing for me that they're doing it. So it's popular for those people, but it's not popular for the public, I would say.
It's a muscle image.
My lights are stronger than your lights.
Exactly. And I can see so far. I'm on top of the world. I mean, the car in American life is about power, individual power. What could say it brighter than lights?
Yeah. Well, I think there's also an element of, I think it's in Canada as well, but it's more pronounced in the United States. And that is this personal right to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And so, like, you have people arguing about, say, free speech. And, like, I don't even know what that means. If, when people talk about saying you're allowed to say whatever you want, well, clearly you're not allowed to say whatever you want. You can't just go around saying whatever you want to anybody you want. You're going to get punched out. You're going to get, speech can be assault. But then you say then we have to suppress it. Well, you don't want to do that either. But with this lighting, it seems like most people so we mitigate light pollution disputes, light trespass disputes. And so we go and we look at the lighting system and we fly a drone over top of it, Michael. We take pictures of it and we show the spread of the light, and then we render it and show that how this light is actually shining on this person's property. It's not spillage. It's not thing. It's actually directed at their property. So this person should take down their lights. And what we know from that work, what I know from that work, is that the light polluters think they have a right to shine their light wherever they want. That's their opinion. It doesn't. I can put a light on my building. It can be as bright as I want it to be, and everyone can go suck eggs. I don't care. And it seems like there's an element to that, which you were talking about, the bigger car with the brighter lights. It's my right, this individual freedom stuff. And, I don't think people have a right to light pollute. I think that's wrong. I think it's trespass. I think you're trespassing with a light source onto somebody else's property, or in this case, into somebody else's eyes who's driving on the road. It's a trespass. It's rude. It's not neighborly. It's hazardous. There's all sorts of ways you could describe it. And, but somehow the press is spinning it positive, Michael, that this is a great thing. And so, I don't know what the solution is. There's definitely different ways to go about this, but I like what Mark's doing. So
I think you're both admirable in what you're doing, and
thank
as
you.
someone who's just ordinary citizen, I'm just thrilled that you're working on this, uh, and the way in which you're doing it is very reasoned and caring, and I really applaud you for that.
One of the things that I think I've learned I've been doing podcasts for 7 or 8 years now. One of the things that I've learned is that sometimes it hurts you to call people out, but sometimes you still have to, Mark Baker. Sometimes you have to be the person that says, this is wrong. And that comes with heat. It comes with people will, in the lighting industry, shun me now. I don't know if you know that.
Mm, no, that's a big deal.
I've been threatened to be sued by them, so I don't say the names of their agencies anymore, but everyone that matters knows who I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So
Wow.
there's definitely a price, but to me, I'd much rather be in this position than their position. Their position is way more complicated than mine.
This has happened to me too. So there are a lot of people that are very unhappy with what I'm doing, mad. But then there's a bunch of other people that are supportive. So it's kind of a weird position, right? There's these people that really don't like you, and then there's these other people that want you to keep going, press harder. Let's get it fixed. Michael Evenson, I have a question for you. So it's sort of this philosophical thing about, and especially American ideals of I can do whatever I want. So as we were working through this New York legislation and trying to propose it, like there's these different limits on the intensity, how bright it could be. Do you think people would be willing, the American public would be willing, or at least enough of them, to sacrifice some, intensity for, for the good of everybody? Like, yes, everybody wants their lights to be as bright as possible, but if we set the limit, like, would they be willing to sacrifice for their own health, their own safety, or is this like no, it's just not no, but everybody just wants it to be as bright as possible.
Uh, Two things come to mind. One is the first thing I said about shielding. There's no reason why the lights can't be directed directly at the road and nowhere else. There is no reason why they can't put a reflector in the back of the light and a hood so that no one but the road is affected. That's number one. And number two, it's sort of like noise pollution. They use decibel meters to indicate when there's a danger, and so you need your eye doctors to kind of come up with some credible numbers upon which the human eye just doesn't function well. So that
Yes.
would be
So
my response to that.
let me say something then about what you just said about the reflector. And it's the same in the street lighting industry. So with when the in the previous before the LEDs, they made good use of diffusion to soften the light, reflecting the light off of stuff
Mm-hmm.
and having it spread out. So streetlights had that and car headlights had that. When LEDs came out, they just skipped all of that. Now
Mm-hmm.
the LED is straight into your eye,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very intense even from this little tiny chip. And so some of the problem could be solved by going back to design techniques that they were using before.
Mm-hmm.
Get that light to bounce off, spread out some more. But then this sort of counteracts the whole myth of energy efficiency. Well, now it's not as efficient because now you're losing some of the light. It's bouncing around. It's not as good. Well, that's part of the problem. The industry and the government have sold us that LEDs are efficient, energy efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the biggest things that I try to promote. That's not a true statement. Everybody's bought into it, the media's bought into it, but it's not a true statement. Energy efficiency is providing the same quality of the light using less energy. LEDs aren't the same quality. It's an industrial type of light, and it's a low quality light. It's something that should be used in a warehouse or something for in an industrial process. It's not quality light for humans. But if we can get the industry to go backwards to diffuse the light, reduce the color temperature, get rid of the blue, spread it out some more, soften it out, then it could be okay again.
The reality,
Michael.
most important thing, I think everybody, when we're in this realm, okay, light to humans is like water to fish. Okay, we are like fish. I've interviewed almost all of the major lighting scientists in the entire world. Okay, that speak English. I don't know about all of them, but at least 60, 70%, some huge number like that. And you know what? Not one of them can tell me what light is. They don't even really know what it is, right? Is it information? That's a good way to put it. Like, should we look at light as like the information of what the universe does and what the universe says? Is it? There's all they can't tell you exactly what it is, and so when we're making these electric and artificial light sources, we're kind of playing around with something that we don't even know how it works. And so when you switch a technology that, from, HID, incandescent, halogen, metal halide, all these old lighting technologies, which are, like Mark said, diffused, lensed, hooded, mixed. I like to use the word mixed. The light is mixed together. And you switch to something that's basically a laser beam, well, you're going to have problems. And Michael, you're on the show today because of those problems and because you're an advocate for change. And so, I'll give you the final word here, Michael. But, I call this 100-year problem. I think we're at year 98 now. 98 more years to go till we fix this problem. But it starts with the kind of work Mark's doing, with the kind of work we're doing here at Restoring Darkness, Lighting in Darkness Foundation. What are your final thoughts for the Restoring Darkness listeners, Michael?
Letting people know that they can do something about it. I think most people don't even tell anyone other than their friends, wow, that was really kind of bad last night. I had this experience, or I don't want to drive at night, but no one else hears about it. So people need to talk to more than just their friends about it. People need to get other people aware that this is something they can do something about.
Mark, do we have a name for this syndrome? LED blinding headlight syndrome. Is there a name for it? I think if we just named it, gave it a name, like light trespass, like when you tell someone that type of light pollution, we call that a light trespass. Well, why is it a trespass? Because you're shining light on your neighbor's property and he hasn't given you permission to do so. So just like your dog pooping on his lawn, it's the same thing. You can't do that. It's a trespass. Do we have a name for this syndrome so people can actually name it, Mark?
You're hitting me with something new here. The Food and Drug Administration is required by statute to now I forget. It's to reduce the exposure to and emissions of unnecessary electromagnetic radiation. Now, in the case of LEDs, that electromagnetic radiation is in the visible light spectrum. So the name of this problem is it's unnecessary electromagnetic radiation, right?
But we need to name the syndrome
problem.
we need to name the syndrome of Michael pulling his car off the road because he has to let his eyes readjust. Like, we need to name that.
What's needed here is what we used to call the best minds of our generation went into advertising. You need to engage with Helen Knowlton, these people who sit around thinking of these names, because when they get the right name, it just spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, we need a name for it and then a hashtag on social media.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
And then people could like write to that hashtag and follow up to that hashtag. And I too have experienced temporal blindness due to something like that, due to the LED head. We got to name it, Mark. You got to name it.
I'm going to grab something. Hold on.
Okay. This show's like going wild, Michael.
Light blindness.
Michael, if you, I'll send you one of these. But
there you go.
People have these. I've got one on my car. I didn't make this. Somebody else made this, right? So I said, I'm getting a bunch of those.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
For next time, folks, if you made it to the end here, please visit softlights.org. Consider making a donation to softlights.org. Mark Baker is working his butt off, and a lot of times he's paying out of his own pocket, believe it or not. He's such a good guy. And you can also go to restoringdarkness.com and donate to the Lighting in Darkness Foundation for our work as well. And we thank Michael Evenson, from the great boomer generation, although he doesn't play pickleball. But the popularity of pickleball is because of those baby boomers. I'm telling you right now. Thank you for listening. Bye for now, guys.
I got a brother who does it. We're part of it. Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
No problem.